Tighten your seatbelts. It could be a turbulent week ahead when a lot of things could happen, including a bloody war, gruesome killings, and a crazy surge in oil prices. It is important to know the context of why it would happen. But this is an age of unreason where events seemingly follow little logic. After all, much of what is happening now was not really anticipated till last week. How did the tide turn so suddenly? No one will own up, but much of what is happening now, including the bizarre assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and the killing of Hezbollah leader in Beirut, is linked to the recent trip of Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu to Washington. He went to Washington at a time when the US President Joe Biden, who has steadfastly supported the war efforts of Israeli defense forces against the Hamas in Gaza after the murderous attack on October 7 last year, suddenly decided to opt out of the presidential race. Hamas is holding 100-odd Israeli hostages that cause a lot of grief for the families in Israel and who want Netanyahu to negotiate with Palestinian Hamas and get them released somehow or the other. Netanyahu is unrelenting. He doesn't want to negotiate. His heart is not in it. Before Israel went to war with Palestinians in Gaza, Netanyahu was in a crisis. He was being investigated for corruption, and there was opposition to his attempts to rein in judiciary. War for him provides him immunity, and many observers claim that he just does not want to talk peace at this juncture. Netanyahu's military ambitions are largely being met with the help of the United States, which had been supplying weapons, ammunition, and logistical support to Israeli army. Despite the horrific assault on Gaza, which has seen 39,000 dead and many more injured, and despite the trenchant global opinion, neither US nor Netanyahu has backed off. This context was important to state that there are some nervousness in Tel Aviv about how this change in the presidential candidate amongst the Democrats from Joe Biden to Kamala Harris will really impact their future, the Israelis' future. Harris was seen to be opposed to war and was keen on ceasefire. Though Netanyahu pays lip service to a ceasefire, but he has shown no intention to stop the war at all. He openly says that he wants to decimate Hamas from Gaza. He has gone about killing the leadership of Hamas and even their relatives. Time and again, Netanyahu has raised the specter of Iran and how it was using its proxies like the Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis of Yemen to destroy Israel. In Washington, Netanyahu seems to have got endorsement from US, that includes from Biden-Harris combination, and Donald Trump too, for whom the military action against Hamas is something that he keeps on peddling as an election campaign. The support came after Netanyahu cut short his visit to US after Hezbollah allegedly fired a missile at occupied Golan Heights, killing 12 Israeli children. Even the most reticent Harris, Kamala Harris, backed Israel. Armed with this support, this bizarre assassination took place of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, and when he was in Tehran for the inauguration of the new president Masoud Pezeshkian. Earlier in April, 60 members of the Haniyeh family had been killed. 60. What was Haniyeh killed for? When he was a moderate of sorts, engaged in discussion about working on ceasefire between the two countries and release of Israeli hostages. Killing him would suggest that the Netanyahu was not keen to have peace with Gaza, as his continuance will be impacted if the war ends. What will his death lead to? What would Haniyeh's death lead to? Haniyeh has been killed when he was a guest and protectee of Iran. Now Iran is threatening to retaliate against Israel. If that happens, then US will hit back, as Israel's security is their responsibility. That has been the case for quite a while. If Iran, Hezbollah, Houthis retaliate in unison, then expect hellish fires in West Asia. Oil prices soar, and the agreement that China has brokered between Palestinians, Fatah, to prepare for ceasefire and peace will go up in smoke. There will be many more casualties of this conflagration. The US presidential campaign, for instance. A world at war will see the rise of Donald Trump, whose presidential campaign is sold on Israel and wants to deport all those who oppose the war. Kamala Harris, in comparison, and the Democrats that are surging after Biden quit the presidential campaign could face serious reverses. A good election campaign that Kamala Harris has launched that liberates the Americans from warmongering and promises freedom and a good time could become a casualty. November 2024 could be looking very different if this is allowed to play out. What happens with India? New Delhi has been using its policy of strategic autonomy to walk the thin line between competing claims. It would not know how to handle this instability. Its default position since Prime Minister Modi took over was to support Israel, but it would not know how to deal with the situation when Iran or its proxies decide to exact revenge against Israel for killing or assassinating Ismail Haniyeh. India has been militarily invested in Israel, and this showdown between Israel and Iran could upset the house of cards that international diplomacy sadly is. So we have to see how it all plays out. Very dark times ahead.